Hey everyone, welcome to another live episode of Wildlife Inspired, and I'm super excited about this one. Talking about two of my favorite things, bird photography and native plants. I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into this subject of native plants. Going to show you a lot of images. We have almost 100 images to go through, so after the discussion about native plants, we're going to jump right into the images, but right now, let's kick it off. Took this, I just wanted the head, the eye, the bill to be all sharp, and then the rest just to like melt away.
The thing I have to say with ducks is it's hard to get creative with ducks or waterfowl in general.
All right. So the topic tonight about native plants and birds, before I get into the images and before I bring on my guests, I just want to talk about why. Like, how did this come about? So, like a lot of things in life, there's these little moments that all build up, and eventually it leads to momentum. And it happened with my bird photography. I had all these little events occur right around the same time, and all of a sudden I just found myself engulfed in birds and photography, learning Photoshop, like all at the same time. And I kind of dove head in. And that was a real 8-year commitment. I've been doing this for 8 years now on a very, very regular basis. And it consumes a lot of time. Well, a few years ago, I got this little buzz around native plants, and I just wanted to put up some pollinators at my house. And honestly, it was a little bit selfish. Like, I wanted to get more insects around. I wanted to get more birds. And I thought, it'll be cool. Maybe I'll get some hummingbird shots at the home on some pretty flowers. And I didn't really have any understanding of what I was doing. I just wanted plants that attracted hummingbirds. So we hired a landscaper. We put some stuff up. Then there was a real trigger moment about 2 years ago. I posted a photo on social media. And I remember hearing a comment from somebody. It was an image I really, really liked. And I remember hearing somebody or reading somebody type the comment, really great image, but. And the but was, I wish it wasn't on multiflora rose. And I thought, oh, that's kind of a junky thing to say. Like, who cares? Like, it's a pretty vine. There's like little thorns on it, pretty leaves. Like, I thought it was nice. It was sitting up at the top of this bush. So I didn't really understand the context of the comment. So I started to research, like a lot of things that I do. I just like research a lot. And I read about multiflora rose, and then I start reading about invasive plants. And then I start getting really consumed with this subject of native plants and versus invasives. And then I start working at my house. I start looking around. And what I notice at my own house, which is 2 sides of woods, 2.5 sides of woods, plus some kind of like suburban lawn in the front, but the back is all wooded. And I started to look, and I was like, oh my gosh, like everything on the edge of my woods is an invasive plant. And I was really blown away about how bad it was. So I just figured I'm going to take it all out. So I did. I took a year and I removed some of these species. If you guys are native plant enthusiasts, and I hope there's a few people that jumped in here. So if you're in the chat box, I'm looking down there, and you're a native plant enthusiast or an expert, please put that in the comments, because I'd love to know. I already know David Brandis is an enthusiast and an expert. His wife actually has a great book. David, I'm going to put that book link in the comments of this, because I thought it was one of the best readings that I had done about the home and how to set up a yard that's productive. So I remove everything at my house, and I'm going to start replacing it with natives. And after I got rid of honeysuckle, wineberry, and olive, invasive olive, once I got rid of those from the edge of the woods, I was amazed at what opened up. And what was back there was some really great natives. I had spice bush. I have about 15 spice bush, maybe 20 on my property that I never even knew existed. And that's a native plant that's really, really great. But it was being absolutely choked out by those things. I also have some really nasty vines that I had to remove. And now I'm in the kind of the second full year of doing this. And I've got some natives that are starting to flourish. And now I've got some other stuff coming up. So some other really weedy stuff that I battle with. And it's a real commitment. I put an hour or two a day into just going out and either planting native stuff to take over or ripping out. Mostly it's 80% of it is just invasive weeding. So that's kind of where I'm at. Now, the long-term goal, how does this apply to photography? Well, the goal is not just to restore my tiny little ecosystem to the way it probably should be at one point, but also to make it a beautiful garden and then hopefully add some photographic opportunities. Sometime, maybe a month or two from now, when my gardens start to bloom and I get a lot of pretty stuff, I'm going to do a follow-up video. It won't be a live show like this. And I'm going to release it out there and let people watch it and see what does my home look like 2 years later. And I can assure you, when you see the before and the after, you will be absolutely blown away. I go a little bit crazy with things. I have, I think I'm up to 135 native species on my property. I started with about 30 that are just wild in the woods. 4 years ago, but the landscaper added another 20 or 30. But over the last 2 years, I put in, I think, 60 or 70 native species. And it's been really, really fun. I'm learning a lot about the process. And again, down the road, the payoff hopefully is I can shoot some really unique images of migrating birds. And I've got a lot of birds now on the edge of my woods. I heard a brown thrasher out there today for about an hour and a half. I've never heard a brown thrasher at my house. And he's been out there every day for the last week. So maybe I get some really different and unique images and I can do it right at my house. So anyway, that's my story. That's kind of how I got into this. I'm going to show you what I've been focusing on the last really year in my photography today. And that is pictures of birds on native plants. And it's taken a lot of work, but I know some of the followers that I have on Instagram have started to share these stories. And it's been really, really great. It's been a lot of fun seeing other people get involved. People send me these stories all day long, like, oh my gosh, I never knew this existed. Check this out. Little screenshots of plants like, hey, Scott, what is this? Like, I'm an expert. I am not an expert, but I do want to bring somebody on who actually is. And so I'm going to bring on, this is Aubrey. I'm going to try to say it right. I'm taking a lot of pride in getting the last names right. Keurajian. Pretty close? Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Aubrey, say hi to everybody.
Hi. Am I doing my intro thing now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So hi, I'm Aubrey. I am I'm an ecologist. I have a native plant endeavor called Ungardening. So it's a three-part thing. It's a consultation service, a nursery, and an educational resource. But about me, I have a degree in systems ecology from Cornell University, and I kind of graduated with the idea that I was going to go into research ecology. I loved academia. I loved that world, but as I did that seasonal field tech thing that a lot of natural science folks do between undergrad and grad school, I realized that while that baseline research is so incredibly important, we've got a lot of problems going on in the world and we really need to act fast. So I wanted to take what I'd learned and bring it to homeowners because especially here on the East Coast, a lot of land is privately managed. And a lot of the stuff that's publicly managed is being managed pretty well. But getting through to homeowners about why to use native plants and why to ungarden really has become my passion. So what I mean by ungardening is basically to look at what we do kind of without thinking as our basic lawn and garden care and start to question those things and figure out how we can bring nature back into our own yards.
That's awesome. So one of the things I found you on Instagram, like I find a lot of guests on the show, and I was looking at when I got this kind of bug for native plants, I tried to follow, a bunch of people and I added a bunch of accounts. And right in yours, it basically said, it was so welcoming. It kind of said, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message anytime. And so I did. And I said quite a few. What is this? What is this? What should I do? Can I eat this? Should I throw it away? And you were so, so helpful. So first of all, I just want to say personally, thank you because you were a tremendous resource for me. I really appreciate it. I feel like I've graduated like the first step and now I'm able to like identify a lot more because I've just done so much research over the last year. But first of all, thank you. You were a tremendous help for me as I was getting to know all this stuff. And you can find Aubrey at Ungardening on Instagram, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also on Facebook, but that's basically just reposts of the Instagram posts.
Okay.
But I love helping people whenever they ask me. I kind of like I can't not answer a question when someone gives it to me, but I like to answer the questions in a way that really helps people to understand and not just tell you what that plant is, but why it's that plant. And because I want exactly what you did to happen, for you to get enough knowledge from me that you can then go and learn how to figure it out on your own.
Yep. So let's talk real quick. I'm just going to pull up. Let me just change the layout here. All right. So this is a little Flickr album. Now, for those of you watching, if you want to watch the actual album on your computer, if you've got two monitors or another laptop or something you can watch from, I have a Flickr page. I think it's at, gosh, I don't even know my own Flickr account. I just post to it. I think it's at Keys Images because that's what everything else is. And then there's a little album there called Native YT, so Native YouTube. So feel free to jump on there if you want to see the images. But I'm going to start bringing them up. And then as we're going through these images, we can discuss a lot more. Now, the game that we're going to play, because I love games, Aubrey's challenge here and the audience's challenge is to see if you can identify the plants that are in these images. So I'm going to bring up some. Now, I kind of grouped them together. So I've got a group of 4 images. So Aubrey, without answering first, let me just I'm going to name the species of bird. So you get to see all 4 of these images first before you have to make a guess. And anybody in the audience that's on chat, you can chime in anytime. So if you think you know the plant, the problem is we're on a delay. So if I let Aubrey answer too quickly, it won't give the audience a chance to answer. So I'm dragging out this first story a little bit so that people could see. This is a blue-gray gnatcatcher. I loved this image. I will tell you, at the time I took this, I had absolutely no idea what this plant was. Another hint, this was taken in Pennsylvania, but in late April, so right around this time of year, 2 years ago. And here's another one. Same bird, obviously, same perch. And then this is a chickadee that I believe, unless I'm really wrong on this species, is the same species. Here's the cool thing. This was taken at my house. And I took this 1 year ago in April. And this was one of the first opportunities I had to really work with native plants and birds at my house. So I'm kind of proud of these two. And then this is the same thing. Another one of the little chickadees that lives on the edge of my woods. And they pop in very regularly into the house, around the house. But they like to hang out right at the edge of the woods. And they do find these elderberries quite a bit. So I see them popping around. So I didn't see anybody take an educated guess yet in the chats. So Aubrey's smiling because I think she knows what it is.
Yeah, well, you just said it.
Oh, did I say it?
You did.
Oh, I'm so bad. I am so awful at this. Did I say elderberry?
Just right at the very end.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm the worst.
These are elderberries. We do have a couple different species, and I know some of them are not fit for human consumption. So this is a really trendy plant. People love the elderflowers are great, but people also really love the elderberries. But it is one to, if you're going down that route, to just use a grain of caution. But the flowers of elderberry, this is a great bird plant. And it's a great one for your yard because it grows super fast. It likes it wet, but it can tolerate it moist if the soil is really rich. And I've seen hummingbirds feed on the flowers. And you would look at these flowers and they don't look like the kind of flowers that a hummingbird could feed on. They're little tiny florets in a big disc, but I've seen it.
Yeah, and I would say to people, one of the reasons I got this, I have a lot of area to cover. And what I read is these elderberries spread pretty fast and can even be aggressive, and they do. They sprout along the bottom, and all of a sudden I have all these little elderberries. I started with 6 plants. I could go out and probably split every plant out there into 2 right now because all of them have shoots coming up all over. Yep. All right, let's get to the next one. This next cluster. This is actually the only one. I photographed this species again. Now, here's another cool fact. This is Oscar. This is the boss of my house. He runs the whole property. He runs the east side and the west side of my house. I didn't share this on social media yet. I'll give the audience a chance to kind of look at the plant and see. There's a lot of telltale signs on this one. But Oscar is a house finch. He is actually, unfortunately, kind of not a native species, which is why I don't like showing him. This is a house finch, but he is on a native plant. And I photographed this out my window. So I went up to my bedroom window. I saw Oscar poking around. I photographed him several times around my house on different things. He's the most accommodating because he's so used to me that I can just walk around and he doesn't fly away. So if he's on a plant, I can just go over and photograph him. So I saw him floating around to this tree. I went up to my second story, opened the window, and literally shot this out of my second story window. And there it is. We do have we've got people throwing in the Latin names too.
Ooh.
All right. So what is it, Aubrey?
Yeah, that's a redbud.
Yep. So Eastern redbud.
Canadensis. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, you could probably guess that one even if you didn't know the plant name, just from the color.
And tell me a little bit about this. You see this now. I'm assuming Connecticut the same way. This is everywhere in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So actually, we are. People like to debate if it's actually native in Connecticut.
Okay.
Pennsylvania, you guys are getting a lot more of those prairie things. It's super native in Pennsylvania. It's kind of like on the edge in New York too. But it's a really neat understory plant. It's in the bean family. The flowers and the beans are both edible. And I do believe that it does fix nitrogen like others in the bean family. So it's a great one to put like near your garden and stuff because it'll actually improve the soil. Yeah.
And so when you're driving, we drive sometimes out to Pittsburgh, and there are stretches where when this is in bloom, it's awesome. It's miles and miles and miles of this, which is to me is one of those really rewarding experiences when you see what's supposed to be there. Rather than sometimes I drive for miles and miles and miles and I see some of that stuff that's really not supposed to be there, and it's pretty depressing. Mm-hmm. Now this one, I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I'm going to leave this one up for the audience. I got no idea what this is. I think it's native, but there's a lot of different fruit type trees. Mm-hmm. So I imagine this is some kind of a fruit.
Yeah. So one thing, I'm always getting pictures that people send me, and I'm actually in a couple of Facebook groups for Plant ID. And of course, obviously, you're taking pictures for the birds,
right.
But if you are taking pictures to send to ask someone for an ID, you want to make sure that like you have the flower fully in focus and like maybe even like open it up a little bit so you can see all the petals, and then like the sides, the sepals or the bracts, and like you want each part of the plant and then the plant as a whole. Because looking at this plant, I can't quite tell what it even is. Is it a vine? Is it a tree? Is it a shrub? The way that the flowers are being held like that, like that, it almost looks like something in the blueberry family, but without some more pictures.
Okay. I think we're going to get a few of those because you have to remember, I take these pictures for the birds, not for the plants. Absolutely. This one I threw in because I had no idea. I was just trying to get a cheap ID out of you on this one. All right, let's go to the next one. And this one is going to be really tricky. I think, let me go to 2. Okay, this is just 1. Now, I am going to give you some hints on this because I know what the species is, I think. Mm-hmm. It blooms in late April in Pennsylvania. So for you, it might bloom in like early May. Mm-hmm. It is a native plant. It's about probably 20 feet tall, and what you're seeing here is foreground. It looks like clouds, but these are big white blossoms in the foreground. Huh. Have I given you enough?
I don't know. Because I thought that was the sky.
Nope. Well, that's artistically, that's what it's supposed to look like. So yeah. It's intentionally out of focus because at the time I wanted it to look like this is an ovenbird, by the way. I wanted it to look like this ovenbird was just singing in the clouds. But these are actually big blossoms.
Huh. I don't know.
I think the Latin name, the last part of it is Florida is something.
Oh, is this a dogwood?
Yes. I think it's a flowering dogwood. I have no idea what the Latin name is.
They just changed. So the small shrubby ones are not cornus. They haven't been cornus for a while, but they just changed. We actually have no cornuses anymore. So if you're a scientific name person, I'm sorry. Dogwoods just got all shaken up.
Oh, no. Because I think it was Cornus floridicus or something
Cornus
like that.
Florida is our common, when you're thinking of when you think of dogwood, but it's now like blepha something.
Okay. All right. All right, now this one, I don't know what this is. I think it's an apple, but I honestly, I don't know.
It does look like a crab apple.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I
Our
put,
cherries and our plums can look kind of, or cherries and our, yeah, plums can look kind of similar, but the flowers are usually a little more tightly clustered.
yeah, there's a few natives that are coming up that I know are native, and I can identify them by look. When I hit an orchard, like if I'm in one of these areas, there's certain species of birds that like to hang around the edges of orchards. And sometimes I don't know if these are old man-made orchards or if they're just native orchards that have been popping up. So I don't really know sometimes if I'm photographing a native or if it's just something that somebody cultivated and has been, stuck in some orchard for a while. Now this one's going to be tough. These are all the same species, and I'm pretty good with this one because this is pretty popular in a few of the areas that I photograph. This is a black and white warbler. I photographed these today. They just come up at the end of April in Pennsylvania. One of the second waves of migrants. So we get our Louisiana water thrushes first. Depending on where you live, you might get pine warblers. They kind of have a range. Yellow-throated warblers. And then the second wave comes in, and that's the black and whites. When I see black and whites, that's like one of our most popular warblers in Pennsylvania. Then I know migration is getting ready to pop. So here's two pictures of it. So I'm going to give you those two. I don't think this is actually possibly the same species, but for sure these two are the same. And the hint on this one, I think, is the color of the branch.
Am I good to go?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is a cherry.
Yes.
We do have a bunch of species of cherries. They can be a little hard to distinguish. I think it might be a pin cherry.
Yes.
They're awesome. They make wonderful berries. And so interestingly, the flowers are a little blurry, but you would notice if you look at it, they kind of do look sort of like the crabapple.
Yep.
And they're in the same family. So scientific names can be super overwhelming, especially you birders are used to having like codified common names. Plants don't have that. But even if the scientific names are overwhelming, just pay attention to the families, and that'll help you start to like group. Just like when you know birds, you know if it's a songbird or a falcon. Knowing the plants.
We call those raptors.
But knowing the families will help you be like, oh, this is in the rose family, this is in the nightshade family, and then you can.
You raise a really, really good point. With birds, there is almost never more than one common acceptable name. Now, sometimes there are these like old school names. So if you are with waterfowl, I find it the most because you have a lot of hunters. And so we may call something a long-tailed duck, and they will call it an old squaw. But for the most part, a black and white warbler on the East Coast, West Coast, North, South, anywhere you go is a black and white warbler. With plants, it is so incredibly different. So what I call something by one name, I'll go to another part of the country, they'll call it another name. And even in the same area, even in the same state sometimes, it'll be referred to as 3 or 4 common names. And that's why with plants, it's almost always when you talk to somebody about plants, if they're identifying it, they will always give it the Latin name. They will always try to give it the scientific name because that's definitive. And I will tell you, if you think identifying warblers is tough, there's 27 or 30 species around here. Try identifying like these things that just like they're like goldenrod. There's like 50 species of goldenrod.
This is the book that I use. Oops, sorry. To identify plants.
Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so this puppy is a dichotomous key. There's like next to no pictures in it. It's almost all words, and this is how you identify the about 6,000 native and introduced species in New England.
And that's just New England.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you guys probably have an even thicker book. You probably. And this is just vascular plants. It doesn't have ferns and mosses and stuff. I have other books. Oh my gosh.
It is literally like mind blowing. I'm getting okay with natives around here. So when I see something in the woods now, I'm like, oh yeah, I recognize that. I see that. Mm-hmm. I still can't identify trees. There's like 600 native trees to Pennsylvania. I'm like, where do you start? Like, I thought birds was challenging. I'm telling you, if you guys think birds is tough, wait till you try to identify plants. It is damn near impossible for a beginner. But what you will notice is there's a lot of commonality. So you'll start to see the same things in the same habitats. And at the same time of year, the one thing I found really helpful for the last 2 years is you kind of can help identify when it blooms. So when it's blooming this time of year, well, you kind of know it's probably one of these groups that typically is an early bloomer versus, something that might bloom at the end of fall. So if I ran into a phlox, like if I saw some phlox in the woods, I would probably know, well, it can't be that one because that one blooms in fall. It's probably one of these because these bloom early. So yeah, but very, very, very challenging. All right, let's get to, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I recommend if you do want to start identifying plants, check out your local library and see what plant ID books they have and borrow them first because they are all arranged differently. And some are going to jive with you better than others. Some are like totally flower based, some are totally leaf based, some have drawings, some have pictures, and they all have different benefits, and they're all going to work a little differently.
Yeah, and one of the things about, for those people that are photographers, like truly photographers, and just want to spruce up, you may want to just kind of dial into a certain type. So it might be certain types of trees or plants. So we may not have an interest in ferns and mosses, for example, but we might. I can tell you, Tyler Reber, who's down in the chat window, has this amazing picture of a bear just engulfed in fern, like literally up to his neck, like as far as you can see. I think it's ostrich fern everywhere, and it's a really, really beautiful picture. I know he's really proud of that one. Now this is a tougher one, so I'll give you a hint on this. There's a Louisiana water thrush. I photographed it last week, and we're trying to identify these out of focus flowers on the left. So thumbs up if you know it. You're good. You got this one.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a pretty common one around stream banks, and that's what these water thrush live. It seems to do well on these like rocky outlets. Like it seems to be able to establish itself. It doesn't need a whole lot of soil. I've noticed it in 3 or 4 habitats now, and it was always kind of these a little bit more damp and not necessarily like these real, they seem to be like rocky. I'll put it like that. Is that an accurate description of where you see these?
Absolutely. Yeah. It likes the water flow. Mm-hmm. So some plants like to be like inundated with water and some really like the flux. Yeah. So it's a saxifrage.
Yes.
A few different species.
Yep. And a perfect, and this is what is so great about, and this is why I nerd out on stuff like this, okay? So this plant is meant to be with this species. So the water thrush like running water, they like streams, and so when you put this together, it kind of tells this very harmonious story. Is it the prettiest picture in the world? No. Am I going to hang it on my wall? Probably not. But if I'm going to nerd out with native plants and birds and tell a story, this one tells a really good story. And by the way, I wish you could see it. He's grabbing a little bug out of those grasses, which are probably some kind of invasive species, but I can't get it all right.
They actually look kind of like a little bulrush to me, like one of the Elaeocharises. It's impossible to tell without touching it.
Yeah.
But grasses and sedges and rushes are really tough to ID. You probably give yourself a headache, but this is a good introductory book if you are interested.
Let me pop that on. Can you read the name of that one?
Sedges and rushes.
Okay.
Sorry, my reflections are awful.
All right. We got it.
It's the recent book that just came out, and it has pictures and drawings, which is nice to have both.
Yeah, I've got some grass. I've got some stuff in the woods. I have no idea what it is. I think it's a native grass that's just, after I ripped everything out, I started to see these clusters of, I think it's some kind of sedge, but I have no idea. Like, it's really tough.
So very, very rough rule of thumb. None of our native grasses form turf, so they will all form little tufts to various degrees. But I would say learn the invasive grasses in your area, get rid of those, and just like leave the rest of them to figure out later.
Okay, that'll be phase 2. All right, so I've got a cluster here. This actually was a pretty little scene. I know that there's a chance that this is not native. These are all, by the way, I think the same family. They may not be the same species. I have no idea how prevalent this is. So, okay, we'll start here. This is a blue-winged warbler. I'm going to work backwards now. This is a black and white warbler in the same general area. I think I photographed this last year. This is another blue-winged warbler in that same area. And then this is in a different area. This is a yellow warbler. I love, by the way, the complement of the yellow and the pink. Very, very soft mood in these. Let's see if anybody else. I'm going to give just a second for the audience on these. I'm going to scroll back through them. So here's the yellow warbler and the pink flowers. These are the non-budding flowers. These are some non-blood. These are just about to open up. These were all taken early May of last year. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, they were all early May, but in 2 different locations. So I know you know the family of these. I don't see anybody chiming in. I wish we didn't have a delay because I kind of... Okay, so we're starting to get some people pop in now. Okay, I have Ashira Fernando says crab apple with a question mark. And I'm seeing you shake your head. Is he right?
I think some of them are. It's a little hard to tell at this scale. Some of the pictures might be of some cherries. Oh, is this one of those old orchardy areas?
Yeah, these are 2 different orchards. So let me go back. This one I'm fairly confident is crabapple.
Okay, yeah.
But I could be wrong because I'm not an expert. And then these I'm pretty sure are. But again, I know there are native crabapples. Yes.
I think for you there are.
Okay.
They don't get this far east, but I believe that you guys have one there.
And again, it's one of those situations where I can't tell you if this is a native or if somebody planted this orchard, a long time ago and imported some.
And crab apples are one of those ones. So not all plants that aren't native are invasive. Some are naturalized and they kind of like play well with others. They kind of dandelions are a great example. Dandelions have made their way everywhere, but you're really gonna have a hard time finding a field that's entirely dandelion like you would something with like garlic mustard. So crab apples are a great one. Any of our generalist pollinators are super duper happy with them. Honeybees love them, so they're a great food source for the honeybees that doesn't take away from the native pollinators. And then I'm sure critters eat the fruit too.
Yeah, and you mentioned something interesting. Like in my home, I have plenty of non-native plants. I'm not going to rip them out because they're fine. I mean, they don't hurt anybody. They're there. They may offer a little wildlife benefit. They're pretty. But there's a much different, so we would call that maybe like an introduced species, meaning it's not from here, but it's not horrible, right?
Naturalized is the word that's often used.
Naturalized.
Yeah.
Now, invasive means it's not from here and it's aggressive.
Yeah, an invasive species is able to displace native species and then successfully keep them from coming back into that area. So unfortunately, a lot of invasive species are really beautiful because we brought them here for the horticultural industry and also for bird restoration. After the Dust Bowl, multiflora rose and autumn olive and Russian olive were planted across the country to stop erosion and provide a food source for birds. We had no idea in the 20s and 30s that they were going to become invasive and be destroying our native forests. So like, it's hard, and a lot of people, I would say, it's almost impossible to find a yard that doesn't have at least one invasive species planted as landscaping. If it's burning bush, if it's a rose of Sharon, even forsythia.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple, and so I would just encourage people. I can't start a revolution on native plants. But I think what I hear from other people is interesting. I go to the garden centers and I hear people say things like, "Yeah, there seems to be a lot of people asking for native plants lately." I read a Facebook, I'm part of a bunch. By the way, if you're interested in native plants, there are so many Facebook groups available locally. So whether it's your county or your geographic region or your metropolitan region or your state, there's going to be a native plant Facebook page for at least your state in every state, I promise you. The interesting thing is I heard somebody say this the other day. They're like, it was kind of annoying though. They said it kind of annoying, like, wow, remember this when this was a really small, intimate group? And now it seems like we have a lot of new people asking a lot of questions that are really simple. And I felt like saying, isn't that what you're here for? Like, don't you want people asking? But the theme, I think, seemed to be there's a little bit of awareness around it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see what invasive species have done to habitat. So every person on this watching live is probably a wildlife photographer or goes out in nature. Once you see honeysuckle, and once you see Japanese stiltgrass, and once you see garlic mustard, you can't unsee it. It is everywhere. My woods, I was talking to somebody yesterday about this. My trees are getting older around here. And what I showed him was after this 50-foot tree line that is starting to decay and fall apart, and there, it's not just native plants, it's native insects. So we have ash borer, which is wiping out stuff. We've got hemlock, which is getting wiped out. But once those trees go down, there's supposed to be this secondary growth there. And it's supposed to pop up and then in another decade or two regenerate a little bit. But it really struggles to do that because it's covered with these invasive species that will not allow that secondary growth to come up and flourish. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're exactly right. Yeah, one of the things that makes invasive species really invasive is that often in their native habitat, invasive, first of all, is an entirely perspective-based word. What's invasive in one place is not going to be invasive somewhere else. So in these plants' native habitats, they're often adapted for disturbance. And we have plants that are adapted for disturbance here too, but these invasives don't have the natural controls that are able to kind of keep them in check. But one thing that's kind of funny in the garden world is that there are native species that gardeners often refer to as invasive. And they're the native species that are adapted to those disturbance roles. So things like black cherry, the goldenrods, yarrow, a lot of the like showy wildflowers, even black-eyed Susan. Or when you look at the names of plants, milkweed, it's called that because it was considered a weed for a long time. We now think of it as super beautiful. New York ironweed. So all of those plants were kind of demonized during the farming of the East Coast. But it kind of shows that invasive is really, like, they're just playing the proper role. And if those plants come into that disturbed area, then the other natives will be able to outcompete them and eventually return it back to it, not return it, but continue the progression of the development of the ecosystem.
Yeah. So, for example, if you burned a field down to the ground, which, by the way, was a natural occurrence in the past, right? I mean, you'd have forest fires that went unmanaged. It would wipe out that area, but it was part of a cycle of life. And then you would get species like goldenrod might come back first, and they might flourish. And you might be looking at a field of a very specific thing, but then you come back 20 years later, and that goldenrod isn't really there anymore, or it's just minimized, and now other stuff has started to flourish.
And actually, so that's kind of an interesting point with the fires. Yes, there absolutely were native fires that occurred in the past, and especially out west, there was a huge problem with the whole Smokey the Bear, don't make the fires. That made real issues. But here on the East Coast, a lot of the fires actually were intentional management done by the native people of this area. So the Haudenosaunee tribe in Confederacy in upstate New York, the Mohegans here in Connecticut, they actually would manage areas to maintain these meadows with the useful medicinal herbaceous plants. And then when the Europeans arrived, after a lot of these groups had already been decimated by disease, the Europeans see these beautiful open fields and farm those, but then have this idea that that was the natural state, when in reality that was being managed, just not as much, but just as intentionally as we are managing our land today.
Interesting. Super interesting. I'm still learning stuff. Okay, I have new pictures up on the screen. By the way, I could talk a lot because you brought up like medicinal value. Oh my God. And not, by the way, not just native plants have medicinal value. Are you going to show another book?
I do have some books.
Okay,
but that's a really good point. And I actually really like to encourage people, if you're interested in foraging, don't forage the natives, because we have introduced so many plants that are, I said we brought a lot of our invasives we brought over initially because they were beautiful. A lot of other plants that ended up as invasive we brought over because we used them. So garlic, mustard, and mugwort were both brought over by Europeans to be kitchen herbs. But a couple of books. So this is a great one written by an indigenous author, Native Harvest by Barry Kepich. But then these two are both local to the Connecticut area. I'll just do one at a time. Adventures in Edible Plant Foraging. And this one is Northeast Foraging. This woman is out of New York City. The other book, the woman's out of Northern Connecticut. So I think this one might be a little better for Pennsylvania. But they're great. Forage a lot. There's a lot of edible plants.
Be very careful because make sure, because I don't want to get on the hook. Somebody says, oh yeah, Scott told me to eat all this stuff. Some of that stuff will kill you.
Yeah, so working with the invasives, starting there is a really great way to do it because there's a lot of really awesome information on those plants, on identifying them, on how to use them. So garlic mustard is a really great one to start with. It's really easy to identify, and it's a little late in the season for it, but
yeah, I have garlic mustard pesto that I made last week. So I pull a bunch, I throw it out before it seeds. But then I save, a few handfuls and I chop it up and I make pesto out of it. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you could do with these invasive species. All right, let's run to these two images. This one, first of all, you don't know the bird, do you?
I have no idea. I don't know.
I love it. All right, so this is a magnolia warbler.
Okay, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure it's a warbler, but
yeah, it's a warbler, and this is a worm-eating warbler, both on the same species of tree. So I'm going to give
it's in the magnolia family.
Okay, interesting. That is not. I don't even know what that tree is, so we'll get to that one in a second. I'll fast forward. I'll fast forward. I'm going to go through. Okay, let's stay on these two. So this is a worm-eating warbler. Early. We'll see these here in Pennsylvania early May. They breed here along the ridges, especially. They love slopes. So they like to breed on the mountainsides. Magnolia warblers are a little bit more of a foresty type bird. They like to hang around in like some of the hemlock, but here I do not have it on hemlock. I photographed it on hemlock a couple times, but I have this in the same. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I've got tulip poplar. Are we correct?
Yes, this is one of our showiest flowered hardwood species this far north. They're really remarkable.
Yeah, I see. It's interesting because I see these a lot young, and I don't know why, but you can see both of these look like pretty young trees, right? These are not mature trees.
Yeah, they grow wicked fast. So they're one of those species that is disturbance adapted. So they will come into cleared areas. So you're often seeing them on the edges of forests. And places.
And that's where I see these. So I photograph a lot, obviously, from the road on these mountain roads is one of my favorite areas to photograph. And along those roads is where I see a lot of these tulips popping up. And a lot of times they are young. Can you identify this one?
Yeah, so this is a fun one. People often think when they're super small that it's poison ivy, but this is actually in the maple family, in the same genus as sugar maple and everything. This is a box elder.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's our only compound leaf maple in this area. And if you kind of were to look at one of the leaves and like draw lines connecting them, it would look like a sugar maple leaf.
Okay.
It's just split.
I see this. So I use these. Oh, by the way, there's some great apps that you can use. They are not 100%. I'll put it out there. I don't get any kind of paid endorsements. These people should pay me. I use one called Picture This. Which is just like a generic, but actually I found it to be one of the most reliable. Like it seems to be good. There's also an app called iNaturalist.
So I recommend iNaturalist.
Yep. And that just to equate it to my bird people, that is the eBird of plants. So in other words, iNaturalist actually it's a little bit of like citizen science, right? You can put it into a database where it can record your sighting, and then other people can actually comment on what that could be.
Yeah, and you actually have people who are like verified experts. So you'll know if the person is like talking out their ass or actually giving you a real ID. And iNaturalist has a version that's a little more like Picture This, that's called Seek. That's really good. So it doesn't have that whole people aspect of it, but it's pretty reliable.
Okay. All right. I do not have that one, but I will tomorrow. All right. Let's get on to these. I think are all the same tree. So I'm going to show you a series here. This is an American redstart. So these are all warblers taken in the same, these two were taken in the same general area. I think this one was too. I think all of these are taken in the same area. So is this one. All over a stretch of about 2 or 3 miles. So these are 2 or 3 miles apart, but in the same part of Pennsylvania. That one is not. So these 1, 2, 3. That's a different plant.
That one's super different.
Okay.
So that's okay.
Is that a maple?
Yeah, that's a red maple.
Oh,
And
red maple.
red maple is super adaptable. It's a really cool tree. It's actually native from Maine down to Florida. So I like to use that as an example of how a species range and it being actually native somewhere kind of there's those words are a little fuzzy. Like just because something's a native red maple doesn't mean like if it's grown in Florida, it's probably not going to like it in Pennsylvania. But
Right.
one of the ways you can tell red maples is that in the internode there, it's a V. So a sugar maple will be a U, and other maples, but
Right here.
can't see my hand. Yeah,
So in the
in
top, that leaf in the top right, it looks like it comes into.
no, the nodes were the like 3 points right there where your cursor was. Yeah, those
Okay.
little V's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
V's, and on a sugar maple or a silver maple, they'll be U's.
Okay. And silver maple in this area, I think, is a pretty common plant. There's also a Norway maple.
Yes.
Tell us about Norway maple.
Norway maples are unfortunately invasive.
Yeah.
They were planted widely in the like 50s and 60s because they grow faster, they green up earlier and stay greener longer,
Yeah.
Which are part of the reasons that they are invasive. They can
Yes.
kind of use that extra energy. They are finishing up blooming right now, so they look very much like sugar maples. Their leaves are bigger, but they've got these like clusters of yellow flowers.
Is the one I have up on the screen right now, this, by the way, is a prairie warbler. Is that a native plant?
So it's an oak.
Okay.
It's one of the things with, I know this is like happy bird photographing season, but it's hard to identify plants before their leaves are fully adult. So it's an oak. Interesting little tapers. It might be a pin oak. It's in the red oak family, but.
Okay. One of the things with bird photography that we like is young emerging growth, because once it gets leafed out, it becomes harder to photograph because the leaves are too big and the birds get stuck in, like you can't photo. So I always love these first weeks in May where all of the trees around here are just starting to leaf out like this. I think that's really pretty. So, and things
so
tend to be more
beautiful.
green.
Yeah, they're so beautiful. The tree flowers this time of year are really fun. Yeah, so this is another oak. It looks like the same as the other one.
This is a
The first
golden winged
picture
warbler.
that you showed was different. I think it's the same as the one that you're about to show,
This one.
where they're slightly fuzzy. Yeah, so I believe that is black oak, Quercus velutina. Sorry, with the trees, I really don't have the common names in my head. Quercus velutina, which I believe is black oak. And this one here is a white oak, which you can see the rounded lobes.
Yep. Okay.
And I'm saying white oak. Here's a fun thing about common names. White oak is the name of one species. It's also the name of a tribe of species within the genus of Quercus. So plants get crazy.
So nerdy. So nerdy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wild.
gosh. All right. Let's see what else we got here. This was taken in a completely different area. This was taken at about one of the highest points in Pennsylvania, I think. So this is the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
Any idea?
With the angles, I've got a couple ideas, but the one thing I want to point, I think it might be a rowan, actually, a mountain ash.
Okay.
Sorbus americanus. But one thing I want to point out, what exactly is a leaf? So this plant actually has compound leaves. So where that bird is standing, that's the petiole of the leaf. And then everything beyond it, those are all leaflets. So if you were to start looking up this plant, that's like one of the key things you need to, it will ask you, is it a simple leaf or a compound leaf?
So this is a compound leaf.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. So you guys are going to be, after this episode, my hope is, listen, I can tell you right now, this isn't going to be because it's a wildlife photography show and it's about photography. And I hope I get some native planty people watching this video on replay. These types of themes tend to not get a lot of views. I am hoping at least to get an average number of views for this show, because I do want people to start to just say like, wow, that is kind of cool, or I never knew that, or I never thought about that. So this is a little bit of a head scratcher. And honestly, I love the theme so much. I don't care how long this show takes. So I normally do an hour. We're almost at an hour. I don't care if we go 2 hours, because this is just for me and you, if nothing else, because I enjoy this stuff. This one, I got no idea.
So that's actually also an elderberry.
I thought maybe it was. It's got those, like the elderberries. So this would be a compound leaf?
Mm-hmm. Yep, elderberries.
And it's got those sharp serrated leaflets?
Yeah, it's got the teeth on the leaflets.
Yep.
Yeah, so when you're looking to identify a plant, that kind of the leaf thing, those are two. So the compound first simple, and then the margin of the leaf is incredibly important. Based off the environment that a plant's growing in, the leaf might be like twice as big, 3 times as big. So no book is probably ever going to be like, measure the leaf of especially a tree. So the margin, the arrangement, and just like the number of things in relation of them to each other.
Awesome. All right, now these don't say anything. I know you're smiling already because you know it.
One. Yeah.
Okay, I've got several of these. This is one of my favorite areas to photograph. I almost said the name of the plant. I'm going to show you a series of 4 prairie warblers. Love this spot. Like, absolutely love this spot. One of the things I've tried over the years is to get the bloom times. And it's interesting because the bloom time of something where I live in the Lehigh Valley can be about a week different than as I go over a mountain and I go to the other side of this ridge. The rhododendron here could bloom, and I'm up there and it hasn't bloomed yet because there is about a 5-degree difference in air temperature. Plus there's an elevation change. So, you know, it's really, really interesting. So I'm going to go through a couple more.
My parents' house is actually on the top of a small ridge, and it's on the like top of a valley, and then there's ridges on either side. So they get about 10 minutes less of sun in the morning and the evening, and it's about 2 weeks behind the rest of the town.
So we have some experts on here. So I just realized Tyler Reber is an excellent photographer. So if you're not following Tyler Reber, just go check him out on social media. There's somebody in the chat window that keeps nailing all these species, and I think it's Tyler's mom. Because I remember his or wife. I don't know if it's the wife or his mom, but somebody in that family is a native plant expert, and she's nailing them. So
Nice.
she got this. Now a couple other people came in. This was a different species, but this one, and this one. I think of the photographs, I think this is my favorite for some reason. I just love the composition, and the light is really, really nice here. So I've got 5 guesses for mountain laurel.
Yeah, the state flower of Connecticut.
Yeah, isn't it beautiful?
It is amazing.
Now, is this in the same family as rhododendron?
It is, yeah.
Okay, because it's a similar
really.
feel. Like it kind of the leaves kind of look the same. The flowers are a little different. Rhododendron's much bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks kind of like if you chop the petals off an azalea, and the seed pods look very, very similar. They're just round instead of like that.
Yeah, I accidentally insulted Karen because I saw the last name Reber and I thought maybe it was his mom. It's his wife. Sorry, Karen. All right. Yeah, so that was mountain laurel. This one, let me go back. No idea what this is. I could tell you this. It's a vine looking thing.
Huh.
Very viney and at extreme elevation. So around in Pennsylvania, we don't get much more than 2,000 feet. So in eastern Pennsylvania, this was about as high as you get in eastern Pennsylvania. Top of a mountain.
I cannot recognize
Nothing.
it from
All right.
the
We'll
picture.
see if all right. We'll see if the ringer over here, Karen Johnson Reber. Let's see how good Tyler's wife is on IDing this one. And go ahead.
Say it almost looks like something in the raspberry group with the like really tight, narrow serrations, and it looks like in the center of the flower, the stamens kind of come up like they look, and that would make sense as a vine.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It does not look like the raspberry. So I have a lot of raspberry on my plant. I had wineberry, and the incredible thing is when I ripped out all the wineberry, which by the way, the berries actually are a little tastier on the wineberry. At least they're so good.
Yeah, I like them a lot. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, I ripped it all out, and when I did, I have at least 50 to 100 native black raspberries. And I think there's 2 black raspberries in Pennsylvania that we have. Rubus, I want to say occidentalis, and then there's another one that's like Allegheny or Alleganus.
Yeah. Rubus oh goodness, I'm not gonna be able to get this straight. Rubus occidentalis is the common black cap raspberry, and then Rubus allegheniensis, I believe, is blackberries.
Okay.
But there are a ton of raspberries actually. So there's thimbleberry, and then there's the dewberries or raspberries. There's a bunch. They're pretty.
Okay. Now this next one, I might only have one of this. So same species, two different plants. So this is, I know you don't know what this is. This is a Canada warbler. These are little skulky guys. They love this habitat. This habitat, it's a stretch of, well, I don't want to say the two species. I almost said it. It's a stretch of these two species for just miles. And it's the densest population of Canada warbler that I know of. And they really, really like this plant. They love this plant. What I don't love is this plant has a waxy leaf and it photographs horribly. So waxy leaves get very shiny. And so for a photographer, that's not always ideal. You don't always want those because any sunlight will just blow out highlights. So not my favorite thing in the world. Let's see if anybody, okay, Terri Joshi. I went back to two plants. So I have this one coming up, but this is the one we're looking at now. It's the first Canada warbler. In the background, it's got these long leaves. They're probably like 3 or 4 inches. In Pennsylvania, this plant, I think I know the species. There's a whole family of these. This one gets about 15 to 20 feet tall. This is a monster. I stood under one in this area, and it was easily twice. I'm 6 feet tall. It was easily twice, probably 3 times the size of me standing. So I'm guessing it was 15 feet. So a pretty big one. So I'm going to wait for 1 second to see if anybody jumps in here. Somebody said hemlock, but I think they're on the next one. Yeah. Some sort of dogwood. Nope. If you know the species, it's a hint. Even if you can't tell from the photograph what the tree is, this species loves this particular plant. I'm waiting for David Brandis. He should nail this one. I'm going to take a quick sip here. There we go. There it is. All right. I have rhododendron.
Yeah, you guys have a lot more diversity of those.
Yes.
We have 2 azaleas and 1 rhododendron maxima. It's very rare. I've actually never seen it in the wild here.
Okay. This is maxima, I think. And this is the big boy. I will tell you, there are some. So you said azalea. So rhododendron and azalea, same family. A lot of them are called azalea. If you're in this area of the Northeast, I will tell you there are some beautiful, and I am waiting. I have a patch of this stuff lined up for this year. I cannot get a bird to land in it. It's called Pinkster azalea and swamp azalea.
Yeah.
And they're both gorgeous, beautiful flowers. They're like bell-shaped flowers with these long, what's the little thing that comes out the middle?
The stamen.
Stamen. That's what I was going to say stamen. I just didn't want to be wrong. But beautiful flower.
They all come out of the middle.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful flower. All right, let's get into this next one. We already ID'd this as hemlock, so I'll move through here. State tree of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that second one was slightly different.
Oh, wait. No, you're
Somebody
right.
else. That looks like it might be a spruce or something.
Yeah, I stuck that in the wrong order. I'm sorry.
My dog.
That's okay. Hey, listen, I have 3. I don't know how. Okay, so these are all, except for the one spruce that was out of order. These are all hemlock. I love these little, when they're emerging, these little light green tips at the end. Yeah, that's a Canada warbler, black-throated green. That's a Blackburnian, but he's not on hemlock. Another Canada warbler. State tree of Pennsylvania, and also a seriously struggling species.
Yeah.
About to get
and as
wiped
the
out.
climate warms, it will get worse because the adelgids in North Carolina, there's almost no hemlocks left alive. In Connecticut, we've still got beautiful, beautiful hemlock forests. So the adelgid is definitely limited by our winters. For now.
And in Pennsylvania, I think we're like on that border. It's here for sure. I mean, I have 7 hemlock that I planted 4 years ago. I found it on 1 this year. So the other ones are good. I don't know where it came from. I thought I was safe because I spaced them out. There's no other hemlock around here. So I'm like, okay, I'm isolated. I shouldn't get this thing. And once it comes, it just leaches the life out of these beautiful trees, which can be, 50, 80 feet tall in a mature forest, right? I mean, they can be sizable. Yeah. The one I have up now is not a hemlock. It's the one that was in the earlier. I don't know by species. I can never tell these apart. Is there a way to tell these apart?
The whole conifer world is definitely a little challenging. Those look like they might be spruces, and to be honest, I'm not super familiar with spruces.
Okay.
A lot of them are introduced and are naturalized in areas. You'll see in old homesteads, you'll sometimes come across, there's a really beautiful state forest I've been working in for my other job, and there's just all these Norway spruces and Norway spruce babies all over the place.
Yeah, we've got some beautiful spruce, and unfortunately in some areas I think there's a red spruce, black spruce, but in some of them there are Norway spruces, which is the introduced. I don't know how aggressive or invasive they are, but I know that there's a lot around here. Now,
and that one looks like
these are pines. I'm going to show you a bunch of pines. Here's the thing about pines. I got no clue on these. How the hell do you tell a pine tree apart from another one?
So one of the useful things is how many needles are in a bundle.
Yep. Okay.
So like a white pine will have 5, like the letters in white. Red pine has 2.
I don't say what this one is. I think I know this.
Yeah, so I would check out books from your library and work on it that way.
Okay. I'm going to guess on this one, but I'm going to wait for other people to guess on the one that I'm showing right now. So this is a prairie warbler. One of the things I love, I actually use this as an example when I talk about scale. You know, in photography, sometimes it's nice to represent scale, and people can relate to a pine needle. They kind of know the size of a pine needle. It's like 2 or 3 inches. So when you've got a bird and the pine needles are exactly at the height of the head, it really gives nice perspective and scale to the size of these tiny little warblers. So anyway, I'm going to shout out what I think it is, and you can disagree. Is this a pitch pine? Or can you tell?
Absolutely, it very well could be.
Okay.
Even with the bird there, the scale at this angle is a little challenging for me. So that's another thing. Always have something that shows the scale in a picture if you're asking for an ID from someone. That really helps a lot. But yeah, it absolutely could be pitch pine. And that actually brings up a good point. With trees especially, they like certain habitats. So you're not going to find something that's a swamp tree on the top of a mountain. So knowing what grows where will like help limit your
this was on top of a ridge.
Yeah, so probably pitch pine.
Yep. And then the other ones, I don't know. We have, I think white pine is pretty common around here.
Yeah, that looks like white pine. White pine has very long needles.
Yep.
And one thing that's great with trees, there are lots of little like field dichotomous keys. And a dichotomous key, it's a dichotomy. It gives you 2 choices and you pick between one or the other, and that leads you down to another pair of questions, and you pick which one's accurate. So those can be super helpful.
Okay, we're gonna move quick now. All right, because I love this stuff so much. I'm sorry, I just get so excited. I could do this all night. I have a whole series of this. This is an easy one. This is like a starter set question. This is a plant, honestly, that when people say, like, what should I get for my home? You can find it anywhere. It spreads pretty quick. It's an easy pollinator. It seeds, so once it dies, you'll get goldfinch coming in to eat off of it. I have a wild field of these near me. It is probably strictly not native to eastern Pennsylvania, but it's everywhere in eastern Pennsylvania, so I think it just kind of spread, but I don't even know. Maybe it is native to eastern Pennsylvania, but it's certainly a native plant. So here we go. Echinacea, coneflower. This would be Echinacea. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Me pronouncing native plant names is like my mom reading off an Italian restaurant's menu. It is brutal to listen to. So purpura, I don't know. Purpurea. Yeah. All right, there you go.
Here's where I admit that I have a slight edge because I took Latin for 5 years.
Oh. Yeah, I'm terrible. Now, this is a tough one. I know what this one is. I'm going to show you a couple. I think these are all the same field as the Echinacea. Mm-hmm. One of the most abundant plants in this field, and one of the tallest plants, not the tallest, by the way, but one of the tallest. There's one plant taller than this in that field. So I'm just going to go ahead and breeze through. I don't have time. You can guess if you want, but do you know what this one is?
Yeah, that's cup flower. And you guys, that's another one that you guys, it's technically not native for us here in Connecticut, but that's an awesome one. Those cups hold water.
Yep. I don't want to give away secrets. I got a vision shot. I have these vision shots for a lot of stuff. I have a vision shot for that species. I'm not going to give it away because somebody will steal it from me. These guys are thieves. They watch my videos and then they beat me to it.
In that last picture, you can actually notice one of the really incredibly important things about native plants is that they host native insects. So yeah, we're talking about the birds, the hummingbirds that feed directly from the flowers and stuff, and like, of course, you've got like goldfinches that love on the seeds, but those bugs are critically important.
Yep.
I know a woman who works with she's one of the starters of the pollinator pathway, and she has a story of finding a bird's nest in her yard with a whole bunch of starved baby birds surrounded by bird seed. So there were no caterpillars in the area for the parents to feed them. All they could give them were these empty calories in the seeds. And even though they had an absolute surplus of seeds, it was not enough good food to bring the babies to adulthood.
Got to have protein.
Yeah.
Yep. No idea what this is. Any quick guesses on this?
Possibly if I burn them. That would be my best bet.
Okay. Oh, here's my favorite stuff right here.
Oh.
All right, go. Just shout it out.
Well, some of the
They're all.
that is goldenrod. That one's a little funny.
I believe this is also goldenrod.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So
this is not. So I think these are all three. Oh, I thought that was goldenrod, but I might be wrong. I might have got that out of order too. Could that be a sunflower?
It could be. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. I got it out of order. It's the same as this.
No, but not too bad because those are both in the aster family.
Okay. So this is, I think it's called Maximilian sunflower. It's a really tall, and it blooms super, super late.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is September 1st of last year, and it's not bloomed yet. Yeah, I had to wait on these things. I kept like, God, these things got to bloom sometime. I went back every week. And by the time they bloomed, the grass was so tall I couldn't get any good photos. I'll be back. All right, this is. I'm going to give you this one. I have a whole series of these. This is the tough one. Do you know it from this picture? Just from the leaf structure. Possibly. All right.
And I think I feel silly about something I said earlier. Now seeing this.
Same plant.
Yeah.
You starting to get it?
I think so.
All right. You're on the honor system. Don't say it yet. You got to tell me if you were wrong. Now you know it.
Okay. Yeah, and the one that I said was mountain ash before is not. This is mountain ash.
Yeah, this is mountain ash. Also called rowan, right?
Yes, yeah, also called rowan. In tradition, it's used to keep witches away.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. This is some of my favorite stuff to photograph. Unfortunately, from a photography standpoint, the berries are very, very difficult. So again, we want beautiful things, and the berries sometimes are ripe, sometimes they're dead, sometimes on the same cluster, they're half dead. There is a peak, this one had it, where all the berries are kind of in good shape. One of the cool things here, let me just run through this again. 1 species, black and white warbler, 2 species, ovenbird, 3 species, red-eyed vireo, 4 species, not a breeding bird. This is a migratory bird, Tennessee warbler. So you only get them twice a year, and they don't last very long. Black-throated green warbler. This is a native. Bay-breasted warbler, also not a resident here. So I only get them twice a year when they're coming and going. And then another bay-breasted and another red-eyed vireo. So, like 5 or 6 different species in the same general area on these same general clusters of mountain ash. So I just wanted to throw this one in. This is a kestrel perched atop. Do you know what this one is?
Yeah, that's a red cedar.
Eastern red cedar. So it's a great native plant. Very tough to find to buy, but they're everywhere in the wild. I tried to buy one last year. I couldn't find a guy to sell one to me. And then this is, I believe this is one of those rubus.
Yeah, so that is blackberry. That is
Allegheny. Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an Allegheny blackberry.
The trick to what colloquially is a blackberry versus a raspberry comes off like a little cap. The blackberry keeps that interior piece when you take it off the fruit.
Okay, good to know. And I thought this was just interesting because here's a bird actually using the native plant. Like all the other ones, they're perched on there, eating insects off of there. I have some from my house of some, I should have put them in here, but some goldfinches actually eating the dried seeds out of the echinacea. Now these, I'm going to scroll through these pretty quickly. The next series, these are all for my Patreon. So these are people that subscribe to this photography thing that I do. I'm so proud. I'm so proud. I'm like the proud father when I get to share like their images. Some of these are going to be tough because, for example, can you identify the general species of plant that this is?
It's kind of looking like a goldenrod.
Yeah, this is Rebecca Kepich, and she identified it as goldenrod. I don't know that she put or gave me the individual species. I think I saw her name in the chat. So if you are in there, go ahead and you can give us the exact species if you know it. But this is a common yellowthroat. They love these patches of goldenrod, these thick, dense, scrubby areas. I always tell starting bird photographers, if you want to photograph warblers, start with common yellowthroats. And the reason is because they're almost never over your head. They are generally low, scrubby, but they will come up to the tops like this. They like the scrub, but they will come up to the top, especially when they're calling and on breeding territories. They'll sing from the tops of these plants. So that's what. This is not a bird.
That's an amazing picture.
But a pretty amazing picture, right? Yeah. Do you know, I did not, this is Vance Solseth. He's a really, really good photographer. He is a bird photographer. He does all wildlife. But when he sent this in, I did this little Instagram contest. I thought this had a chance to win it. I do these brackets where I put people up against each other and we vote on Instagram. It's a lot of fun. This one is, I think it's a sweat bee. Do you know what this flower is?
I don't.
Okay.
It's interesting. But that picture, it almost looks like, I mean, obviously the picture has been edited for the black, but it looks like maybe the petals have been cropped out a bit or something. Okay. It's reminding me of single flower. But this book and this author, Heather Holmes.
Let me zoom you up.
God,
okay.
Don't know what rights.
Pollinators of native plants.
And it goes by flower species, and then it shows you pictures of the likely pollinators that you're likely to find on that species. So some of them are specialists, some of them aren't. It's a really neat book.
And it'd probably be a good time to bring up the concept of host plants.
Absolutely.
So some plants or some insects or caterpillars or butterflies or whatever will only feed or reproduce in the presence of specific either plants or families of plants.
Exactly. Yeah. So the milkweed and the monarchs are kind of the clearest example of this. So monarch caterpillars need one of the species of milkweed as a caterpillar to eat so that they have those toxins, but it's also the only food they can now eat. And then as adults, they can eat nectar from any flower. So that's, there's a term I don't know, but that animal is a specialist for part of its life. Some organisms are specialists for their entire life. So like leaf miner beetles and stuff, they can only survive on that one species or group. But then we do have other things that are generalists that can take pollen from anywhere, take vegetation from anywhere, except for the plants that have evolved defenses. So it's kind of, the specialist thing is kind of like an arms race. So in the beginning, everyone was a generalist. And then this plant said, stop eating me, I'm going to make this. And then this insect said, oh, wait, that's really yummy. I'm going to eat that now. And they become matched. Okay. So other insects can't eat that plant. With birds, it's not the same there's not one-to-one relationships as often in temperate areas with individual species, but there are those specialist relationships with habitats. So if you don't have native rush swamps that create that kind of those doming little pockets of dead vegetation, you're not going to have your rubbing blackbirds and other like marsh species being able to nest in there. If you don't have open fields, you're not going to be able to have your bluebirds.
Yeah, one of the interesting things, probably the best example in the bird world are hummingbirds and how they've adapted to actually pretty specific plants. So there are some flowers that have these really long, kind of elongated structures, and that hummingbird has adapted either a curved bill or a super long bill to feed on that specific plant. And if that plant were to go extinct, then there's a chance that bird could not adapt to feed off of another plant because it's made for that. And so there is that concept of this, this food chain. And that's one of the dangers of invasives is sometimes those invasive plants can crowd out or almost eliminate a species of native plant, which an insect was adapted for. Probably not a bird, but maybe an insect was adapted for, and therefore that insect becomes, essentially gone. All right.
Yeah, and without enough of those specialist insects, you don't have enough food
Correct.
for the birds. And that
Yep.
idea of specialists is why it's super important and not totally overboard that you have 130 species of native plants in your yard, because every additional species that you bring in means more specialists that you're going to be able to help.
I'm getting an answer on this. Prairie clover flower.
Oh, okay. That makes
All right.
sense.
Okay.
It also makes sense I don't know it because you guys have an incredible amount of prairie species that we just don't have here in Connecticut.
All right. This is Nick Parish. I would guess this is in the aster family. Tell me I'm right.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting better. I'm getting better. Remember when I didn't know anything? Remember when I used to ask you like the easiest questions?
yeah.
You're like, yeah, Scott, that's common blue violet. It's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, no, it is really such a learning process, and it's like learning a language. So like you look at that now and you're like, I'm pretty sure that's an aster. So that's going to help you a lot if you go to a book and try to figure it out from here. So this is one of our fall blooming asters, the Symphyotrichums, and they are a bear to ID. But the good news is there's no invasive that looks like them. So we've got the big oxeye daisies, and they aren't native. But I kind of like to. You only need to identify, like if your goal is to increase native plants, you only need to identify things to a certain point. You don't need to worry about exactly which species of goldenrod or exactly which species of aster it is.
Okay. So this. Oh, by the way, I don't think I mentioned this is from Nick Parish, super photographer, really, really good. This next one is from Chris Keele. He was on the show. Now, this is one of those that I will tell you because I'm in a lot of these native plant groups. A lot of people will be like, oh, I don't want this plant. This is a goldfinch. And the reason they don't want this is because it gets pretty big. Like it can get really big. I've got a couple on my property that are about 6 feet tall, and it spreads pretty quickly.
Yeah. So yeah, 6 isn't even that tall for them. They can get probably like 8 feet tall or
Okay.
so. This is a plant called poke,
Okay.
and it's really cool. A lot of people call it pokeweed. But that's one of those annoying things where we stuck weed on a plant we don't like. And the really cool thing about the name poke is it's actually the Algonquin name. So it's one of the few plants that we still sort of call by its indigenous name. Those little berries are all going to turn bright purple, and the birds absolutely love them. And it's one of those ones that kind of what I was talking about, how gardeners sometimes refer to some natives as invasive. This is a disturbance adapted species. It's going to come into those areas where there's been a storm, a mudslide, a fire or something, and it fills in, it gets real tall. It is a perennial. It has a deep, deep taproot, so it can really help remediate soil, real clayey soil. It'll get a lot of organic matter down in there, but it can't really compete against others. Once you've got an overstory, it needs that sun to survive. So it's part of that natural turnover of ecosystems. So the reason we see it as a problem in our yard is because we're kind of trying to arrest things at a certain point, and we like to have a lot of open space that just says, here, come here, hang out to plants. But this is one, and the last book I'm going to show up. This is a great one if you're trying to identify plants in a suburban area. I like to refer to it as the Field Guide to the Abandoned Lot. It's not just urban plants, but it's basically all of the disturbance adapted native and invasive species that you're likely to find in a kind of if you let your yard go wild, these are going to be the first plants that show up. And it's great. It tells you what's native, what's not.
Awesome. All right, let's go to, I got a couple more here. This is going to be a tough one. American tree sparrow. The photographer is Kelly Ballantyne. She is a native plant enthusiast. I know this because I follow her on Instagram. She's also on my Patreon, and a wonderful person and really getting pretty good with bird photography. So now she's like this native plant enthusiast and bird photographer. So I love her. Goldenrod.
It is. It is.
You can't tell though. So shape of goldenrod is important, right? Some of them will have kind of a pyramid up top, and some of them will be kind of leafy and branch out. But it's really hard to get a specific one without seeing it or getting real close or a lot of shots of it.
Yeah, you need to be able to see a plant in all seasons. Not all plants, but a lot of plants you need to be able to see it in all seasons to know. I could narrow this down to it's either showy or wrinkle leaf or in Canada. But yeah, with goldenrods, there's like the ones that have the big pyramidal flowers. There's ones that are just a single wand, they call it. And then there's ones that are like kind of trailing. This looks similar to common. But another thing also, you need like the basil leaves with some of them, especially with the asters. So that fall blooming aster, one of the reasons that those are almost impossible to ID is by the time that the flowers are there, which you need for the ID, the basil leaves right at the bottom of the plant are gone. Those are there in the spring, and you need to know what those look like to get. So it's a challenge for sure.
All right. I did a photography contest so this one actually, believe it or not, this one did not win. Yeah. Do you know what the bird is? By the way, the photographer Alicia Barrett, she in most of these, I'm going to leave a list of all the photographers' Instagram handles. Her Instagram handle is not her name. Some of the other people were their name. Hers is like Wood. I can't even remember it now because I'm doing the show, but it's like Woods Wild. She's in Nova Scotia, I think. So I'll leave the information there. But what's the bird?
That's a puffin, right?
Atlantic puffin. There's more than one species of puffin, but yeah, I'll give you that. Okay, good job. What's the flower?
Looks like an iris.
Yep. Give me the name. Come on.
I mean, it looks like versicolor, but there are a few species.
Okay. Is that blue flag iris?
Yeah, blue flag. Yeah,
Okay.
so blue, that's, again, with common names, blue flag iris, it refers to about 3 species.
Okay. Yep,
So
that's
a lot
that's
of
what
the
she
common
ID'd it
names-
as.
Okay, yeah, a lot of our common names are actually genus names.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Oh,
Cedar
this is a
waxwing. What a
Yeah.
great photo, right? Great. Like, and some of the other ones, what was interesting is a lot of the other ones that I put into this little photography contest we did on Instagram. Oh, by the way, before I forget, this is Terri Joshi, terrific photographer. And a lot of the other ones were just perches, right? But this one, this is the interaction. And this is so, to me, this was so cool. We normally think of cedar waxwings, by the way, as a berry eating species. They love berries. But here it is on, and what's the plant?
This is a pussy willow. Is he just licking the pollen off?
I have no idea. I couldn't figure it out.
That has to be.
Yeah, she's
way.
pretty good at Photoshop. She's not good enough to put a cedar waxwing on there and have it eaten a plant that it wasn't there. So yeah, I don't know if it's eating the pollen. They're generally, again, this species loves berries. You don't even generally see them feeding on insects, although you can. But what it was going after, I don't know. I just thought it was super, super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this time of year, if you're hungry enough, you're probably going to want something that has pollen on it or have protein in it. And pollen is a super easy source of protein.
Now, she's saying that it is her belief that this is a host plant and that Terri Joshi is saying it was eating the pussy willow. So, but I don't know where the nutritional value would be to eat unless it's a pollen.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, the pollen is the most nutritious part of that. Those are the flowers. So willows are a great one. They are second only to oaks in the number of Lepidoptera, so butterfly and moth species that are specialists on them. So they're as like smaller trees. They can be a really great way to get a lot more caterpillars into your yard.
Yeah, that is on. I don't have any at my house. That's on the list. I added, what was the last one I added? Witch hazel. I put witch hazel on my property this year. I put button bush on my property this year. And pussy willows on the list for the back of the house. This is unbelievable. So this, I don't know if
you see the caterpillar?
No, it's eating the pine cone. And the reason I included this, let me try to zoom in here.
Yeah, it actually.
So this is a crossbill, which is
my God, that's the seed. That's amazing.
Very specific species. This is what is so amazing. This species is adapted. It's one of the few species where the bill is not even and symmetrical. It actually is overlaps, and it is adapted specifically to eat pine cones.
That's so amazing.
Right? So it uses that bill to eat this. This is what I thought. Yeah, this is by the way, it's Kathryn Seyn-Wittgenstein. She's kind of a tough one to say. A wonderful photographer. She's going to be on my show. I was trying to get her in May, but she's got some stuff going on. So she's actually going to be one of my guests for 10 Images with. That's how good she is. She is terrific. She sent me a bunch of like native plants with birds. I said, stop. Like I stop. This is it. Like this is what it's about. This is the perfect example of adaptation and native plants. If these plants, for whatever reason, if some disease came in and wiped out all of the conifers, which God willing they don't, but if they did, this species is done because that bill is adapted to eat this. And if this doesn't exist anymore, it's going to struggle. It doesn't have a way to feed on birds or worms or berries or stuff like that. So anyway, I just thought it was an incredible shot showing specifically those cones and what this bird is adapted to do.
Yeah, no, that is amazing.
So good. I just stared at this for a while. I was just like, wow, that is so good. She kind of blew it off like, yeah, let me send you a few more. I said, what do you mean send me a few more? This is it. We're done. This is amazing. All right, let me zoom out and then we'll get to the next one. So that Kathryn Seyn-Wittgenstein. Oh, from a photography standpoint, man, I told, this is Lisa Marie Connor, when she sent me this, I thought, honestly, and I'm not trying to like brag on my own photography, but when I saw this, I thought it was mine. I'm like, wow, that is really, like, I love this. It was really, really good, but it just hit me. I was like, wow, this is awesome. It's goldenrod. I don't know. She may be in the chat. If she is, I hope she chimes in. We may not know the species. Again, goldenrod can be really, really tough. It looks kind of like a lower compact species from at least the part he's on.
Yeah. Without the flowers, they're impossible.
Yeah.
Basically.
But man,
there's a few that are like very distinct.
The light. This is so photography. Like light is paramount. Like we could do all the other stuff in the world, but light is just so critical. As a portrait, I just love this one. All right, and I got the last one from my guests tonight. This is Derek Shenot. Now, in my little Instagram contest, Derek Shenot, who is a subscriber to Patreon. By the way, he's like, he doesn't need my help with photography. Wait till you see this one. He won the whole thing. I had 16 entries head to head, and this one won it.
Oh, wow.
Look at the framing. So we, in photography, we call this framing. So composition is so important. The bird is just so well placed in this little Y. He's got space around it. There's this foreground framing. It's a crabapple, I assume. Again, crabapple could be tough with getting the species, but man, I think I did see him on. So maybe he knows the exact species of crabapple. Most people, again, especially if you're just an amateur bird photographer, you're just like, it's a crabapple, right? That's what I do. It's just a crabapple. I hope it's native, but maybe it's not. But that's pretty impressive.
That's amazing. Yeah, even the old orchard trees really just tell such a story. Very few. I don't think there's any like orchard species that's become invasive, so you don't have to feel too guilty for looking at them. They just are amazing.
Yeah. Now I'm going to run through. I've got a couple more images. I'm just going to breeze through these. These are my favorite native plant images from the last, I'll say 2 years. I think this is probably going back 2 years. I love the contrast in this monochromatic bird, this black and white warbler, on these very, very young. I think this is red maple.
Yeah, it looks like a red. When the leaves are that tiny, it can be hard to see. Sometimes the notes look a little funky, but
yeah. But I guess a lot of the maples are red when they're young, when they're that young.
Red means sugar in plants.
So what are you saying?
Oh, so those have high sugar concentration. So since they're growing, they've got a lot of sugar and they're working really hard.
Look at you, that Cornell education. You're putting that to good use, huh?
Yeah. Oh, this is one of my favorite plants.
How about it?
So much.
So this is so the bird is a Lincoln sparrow, not a resident here. It migrates through. I typically get them in October. This is late October. There's 2 plants in here. I don't think the grass is a native grass, but
yeah. So that's foxtail. There's a bunch of different species. I think that's one of the pasture.
I wish that was native because I put it in because it's got this it balances the composition. So from a photography standpoint, it's good balance. But what is climbing up that branch?
Yeah, so that's one of our native, you guys might have another one, our native clematis virginiana, virgin's bower. Also called devil's darning needles.
Devil's darning needles, yes. I've got these at my house.
There
beautiful.
are some grasses in that Soteria genus that are native. I don't know how abundant they are.
I think we've got a few native clematis. Clematis is a little bit more popular down south. I think
Oh,
there's more
The
variety.
grass. The grass.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah,
I got
in
you.
that genus, there are some native ones.
Yeah, I think there's I don't want to get into a discussion about clematis. I think there's like maybe 2 or 3 that breach into Pennsylvania that you can find. There's one called, I think the common name would be leatherflower viorna or something like that that could be, but I think there when you go down south, I do think you get a lot more clematis variety in the southern parts. Yeah, that's a beautiful. I love that.
Is that more cup flower?
Yeah, this is what it turns into in October. I love this photograph. It tells the story of what these birds go through. Like this is a migrating bird. Now he's going to look through these expired fields, these dead fields in October for seed, so that he can continue his migration southward. So this is not a resident bird. He's just migrating through in early October, and he's trying to get to where he wants to go. And it's just from a color standpoint, I love how he just blends in. It's kind of a neat color story.
Plants don't have to be showy to be super useful for birds.
Yes.
The giant ragweed was one of the favorite spots of the birds in my parents' yard this past year.
Yeah. All right, this is a northern perula. This was my favorite of the series. I'll tell you why it was my favorite. I sat on this cluster of berries day after day after day after day. And I was just determined. I said something eventually is going to land here because they were landing all around this area. It's a migratory pathway. It was late September, and eventually this bird, and I couldn't believe he landed there. I'm like, finally, somebody landed on this little cluster of berries, and it had just rained. So if you look at the bottom, these little raindrops. So anyway, sometimes images, I think it's a pretty image, but sometimes it's just because it's like that finally moment, like, finally it happened. And that was one of those finally moments. I love the composition of this one. It's got this really nice starred effect. So this is a common
like
yellow throat. Yeah. Yep. And there's some stuff in the background there. I don't know exactly what else. I mean, I kind of know this field really well. I don't know what these white flowers are back there. So I couldn't ID that one for you. I hope this is native.
Yeah, that's a silver maple.
That's what I thought.
So you can see it kind of looks like a red maple, but if you look really close at that inner node, it's rounded.
Okay. Oh, yeah, exactly. I see it. Yeah, so I was hoping this was, because this is actually one of, if not my favorite, native plant photographs. And it really, there's a couple layers to this, but the most interesting layer to me is look at the colors on the northern perula's chest and look at the color on these young silver maples. Like the underside is yellow, the top is kind of orange, and if you look right here, the colors are almost perfectly mirrored in there. So listen, I can't tell you I planned that to happen, but I was certainly not upset when it did. So when I got that composition, he's kind of tucked under this umbrella of silver maple. I really, really like that one. So that may be my favorite of all.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
It's like he's hidden under an umbrella.
All right. Well, listen, we went an hour and 37 minutes, which is 37 minutes longer than my usual shows. But I'm going to tell you, I don't care. I can continue to talk about plants, and if everybody watching lives leaves, I'll still talk about plants. So it doesn't matter. I'll just go on for as long as we want. Is there anything before we log off, though, that any message you want to get out there? Is there anything you want to talk about? So you are available. You do presentations, right? So if somebody wanted to get a hold of a native plant person to do a Zoom call, you're available.
Yeah, so I do talks online, and as things are getting normalized, and I do plant walks and stuff. So I am located in kind of northern central Connecticut. So Pennsylvania is not like too far away. But I mean, I used to work out west. Pennsylvania is not too far away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also, for people who are local, if anyone's in the Connecticut area or maybe Western Massachusetts or Eastern New York, I do also do yard consultations where I come and identify with you everything that is on your property. Because I think that's really the big thing. A lot of people, when you want native plants, you want to go out and buy them. And there are some plants that have made it into the horticultural industry and are out there, but I bet you've got a lot of really cool natives in your yard that are just waiting for you to let them be there.
Yeah, I was amazed when I removed the honeysuckle primarily and the wineberry from my yard. I was amazed I had stuff back there. Jack in the Pulpit popped up all over. I had no idea it was back there. I just saw this year false Solomon seal, and I thought there were 30 of them. I never saw one, didn't know it was back there. I told you the spice bush. I had more than a dozen spice bush that I couldn't even see back there. And there's some other stuff that's a little more aggressive coming in, but it's helpful. And here's what I'll say: if you're in this thing, my very limited experience with this has been, if you are interested in native gardening or planting, you have to be prepared for invasive removal, because the reason those invasives work is because they're kind of like bigger, stronger, faster, and they will take over without your help. If you just give up these natives a little bit on your property, they can flourish, but they are going to need probably a little bit of help. So it's going to take a little bit of time weeding and pulling and doing some stuff. And hopefully you don't have any of the stuff that is, really, really difficult to deal with. So something like lesser celandine, which can be like really, really tough to get rid of once it's established, and mugwort can be, pretty tough to deal with. Some of the stuff, though, it's just a matter of, like garlic mustard. Honestly, it's pretty bad. You just got to pull it a lot. Like it's a lot of pulling. So anyway, I've had fun with it. I hope I can continue and have the energy to keep doing it, because I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a real thrill for me to just see stuff come back to probably the way it was 20 years ago, before this stuff was on my property. That's probably all the stuff that was in these woods. It's interesting. I took a walk today. All along this dirt road through the woods, I saw nothing but, multiflora rose and honeysuckle and all garlic mustard, all of these invasives. And I parked the car, and I was just demoralized. I was so depressed. I started walking through the woods, and it was amazing. After 100 feet, there was less. After 400 feet, there was less. By the time I got a quarter mile in the woods, there was almost nothing invasive anymore. It was all natural stuff, native stuff, beautiful stuff. These little dwarf ginseng were out there, and these May apples, and like all of this gorgeous, beautiful stuff. Rue anemone. There was all these species that I was like, oh my gosh, like this is what it was supposed to look like. But if we let it go, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that line of invasives will push back deeper and deeper and deeper into the woods. And it is interesting how much you can see was caused by transportation and traffic and destroying that and opening it up for the sun. And you talked about disturbed areas. That's what we did. We created just thousands of miles of disturbed areas per county of the country. And that's where these invasives have really started to thrive. So anyway, I really enjoyed you as a guest. I'm so glad we connect on Instagram and I get to ask you more questions. I'm probably not as annoying as I was last year or the year before, but I'm still going to hit you up once in a while.
Absolutely. Please do. Yeah. And if anyone listening, the further you get away from Connecticut, the less likely I am to be able to give you a good ID, but I can always give you resources. So if you ever want to push something out. But kind of the flip side of that disturbance thing is once you've got the native plants established in your yard and you've got that functional ecosystem, your fight against the invasives isn't going to be as hard the next time. They're not going to be able to come in like that because a lot of them need certain amounts of light to germinate. But also, if you've got a really big issue with something bad like mugwort or common reed, it's okay to use herbicides selectively. Sometimes just the amount of effort you're going to have to put in doing something another way, it's okay to use some glyphosate to remove the mugwort. You got to consider your effort and the amount of energy you have and the difference you're actually going to want to be making.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I again, on a lot of these Facebook forums, you'll hear somebody say, absolutely not. The veteran people that I listen to on those things, they say, listen, at the end of the day, you're either going to use a little bit of this stuff selectively, and nobody's saying go out and broadcast spread your entire property with glyphosate because that's or Roundup. Yeah, that's a pretty strong chemical. However, you will hear people say, very selectively, and there's ways to do it, and there's methodology behind it. I'm not going to advocate it because I don't know what I'm talking about. But research it, and again, get into communities and forums where there are experts in the field, and they can help you with some of that invasive removal, because that is a big part of it. It's not all just, hey, I'm going to plant some native stuff and everything's going to be great. I would encourage people to give it a shot, even if it's small. I've had people, I was so proud when somebody said, I only have an apartment, but here's what I'm doing. And they had these pots all over their balcony of native plants. And I was like, yes, like that's great. Like you do what you can do. And so if you only have a small lot, you know, maybe it's just 4 or 5 species of native plants, but watch what happens and the thrill when butterflies start coming in, when you see your first monarch caterpillars on your swamp milkweed. You know, it's really, really, really cool to see. So I would just encourage everybody to, if you haven't done it, to give it a shot. And as a photographer, I think there's huge advantages in building an ecosystem in your yard that attracts insects and then attracts birds. So anyway, that's my spiel. So Aubrey, thank you so much for joining. I had a blast and you were a wonderful guest.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
All right. Let me just say, I'm going to sign off for the night. Thank you guys for staying a little bit longer than usual. A wonderful episode with a lot. I know we could have done hours on this topic. I'm glad you stayed with it for this long. If you have any questions, all of Aubrey's information will be at the bottom. And then thank you to all the Patreon members who were in this episode. What wonderful photographs. I'm going to put all of their contact information here as well. And I guess without any further ado, I'm going to log off. So thank you for joining me tonight, and stay well. Thanks for tuning in to another live episode of Wildlife Inspired. If you're not a subscriber, you're going to want to make sure you hit the subscribe button now. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. I'd love to hear it. Now, you can find me on my social media contacts down here at SKeysImages and on my website, skeysimages.com. If you enjoy the content, you're also going to want to check out patreon.com/wildlifeinspired, my subscription site where I take you in the field and behind the scenes, and I offer lots of editing advice in both Lightroom and Photoshop. I also have videos there that are archived only for Patreon subscribers. I do want to thank you for your ongoing support, and I hope we can continue to find inspiration in wildlife together.